The darkness of space rippled as the Empire's fleet emerged from hyperspace. Thousands of warships, each one a towering behemoth of destruction, cast long shadows over Earth. At the center of the fleet, the Imperial dreadnought, Bloodborne, loomed like a god of war, its metallic hull reflecting the distant light of the sun. Admiral Kryn stood on the command deck, his reptilian eyes narrowing as he gazed at the blue-green planet below. Earth, the last defiant world. "This will be quick," he muttered, his voice filled with certainty. Humanity was primitive compared to the Empire. Their technology was outdated, their weapons weak, and their fleet laughably small. Earth should have fallen long ago. But somehow it had resisted. It had remained untouched while the Empire conquered world after world. Kryn did not believe in myths, but whispers had spread through the Empire. Stories of human resilience, of impossible victories, of entire fleets vanishing without a trace. Superstition. Nonsense. The Empire had crushed civilizations far superior to these humans. This battle would be no different. "Begin scanning," he ordered. "Find their defenses, and prepare the first strike." The fleet's advanced sensors swept across the planet, but something was wrong. The readings flickered, systems glitched, and unknown interference clouded the results. Kryn frowned. That wasn't possible. The Empire's technology was the most advanced in the galaxy. No primitive species should be able to interfere with their systems. The comms officer turned, his face pale. "Admiral, we can't get a clear scan of their military assets. Something is blocking us." Kryn's frown deepened. "Then we will do this the old-fashioned way." He turned toward his second-in-command. "Commander Vale, dispatch the first wave. Let's see what these humans are hiding." A fleet of destroyers broke formation, descending toward the planet's surface. They were followed by thousands of dropships carrying elite ground forces, unstoppable warriors genetically engineered for war. Earth's resistance would crumble within hours. As the first ships entered the atmosphere, everything changed. An eerie silence filled the command deck. The live transmission from the lead destroyer, Imperius, crackled with static. The crew watched in confusion as the signal flickered, then went dark. Kryn's claws tightened around the command chair. "Report." No response. Then suddenly, "Sir, we've lost contact with the entire first wave." A cold chill spread through the bridge. That was impossible. Even if the humans had attacked, they could not have destroyed an entire fleet that quickly. Then the alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the deck as new readings appeared on the holoscreens. Kryn's blood ran cold. The wreckage of the Imperius was falling from the sky, destroyed in an instant, and no one knew how. For the first time in his life, Admiral Kryn felt fear. Humanity was not what he had expected. This was not an invasion. It was a trap. The bridge of the Imperial dreadnought was silent, save for the hum of the holoscreens. Admiral Kryn's claws tapped against the metal armrest of his command chair, his mind racing. The first wave of the invasion had been wiped out. Not slowed, not damaged, completely annihilated. "Get me visual confirmation," he growled. The holoscreen flickered to life, displaying footage from distant observation drones. What Kryn saw made his scales tighten. The wreckage of the first wave was scattered across Earth's atmosphere, burning like falling stars. "No energy signatures detected," the comms officer stammered. "No missile trails, no beam weapons. It's as if they were just erased." Kryn's eyes narrowed. That was impossible. The Empire had fought hundreds of wars, crushed thousands of species. Nothing could destroy Imperial warships that fast without leaving a trace. He turned to his second-in-command. "Commander Vale, deploy the second wave. Heavier forces, full combat readiness." This time, the Empire would not underestimate the humans. On the ground, Captain Elias Carter stood among his soldiers, watching the burning debris rain from the sky. His radio crackled as commands came through from high command. "They sent another wave," his sergeant reported. "Twice as many this time." Elias nodded. Let them come. Earth had been preparing for this war for years. While the rest of the galaxy saw them as weak, as primitive, humanity had spent decades studying the Empire, learning their technology, hacking their systems, and developing weapons that could counter them. The moment the second wave entered Earth's airspace, they faced the full force of human ingenuity. At first, it seemed like a normal assault. The Empire's landing ships roared through the sky, breaking through the clouds with their massive engines. But then, the jamming fields activated. Their navigation systems glitched. Their targeting systems shut down. The advanced Empire ships, reliant on their technology, were suddenly flying blind. That was when humanity struck. Railgun platforms, hidden deep underground, opened fire, launching projectiles at hypersonic speeds. Unlike energy weapons, they left no trace on enemy scanners. By the time the Empire realized they were under attack, their ships were already breaking apart. The invaders that did manage to land found themselves walking into chaos. Urban centers were empty, but the streets were full of traps. Hidden explosives tore through squads. Automated drones attacked from the shadows. Human forces were nowhere to be seen, but their weapons were everywhere. The Empire had expected a battle. What they got was a nightmare. On the Dreadnought's bridge, Admiral Kryn watched in horror as his second wave collapsed. His warriors were not even reaching their objectives. It was as if they were fighting ghosts. For the first time in his career, Kryn realized the truth. Humanity was not just resisting. They had been waiting for this. Admiral Kryn's jaws tightened as he watched his second wave disintegrate before his eyes. His once unshakable confidence was now laced with something he had never felt in battle before: uncertainty. The fleet had invaded countless planets, faced thousands of enemies. None had ever been capable of mounting such a precise, coordinated counterattack. Not at this scale, not with this efficiency. "Status report," he barked. A tense silence filled the bridge. Officers scrambled over malfunctioning terminals, their scales darkening in frustration. Finally, the sensor chief looked up. "Admiral, we've lost over 60% of the second wave." The words echoed through the command deck like a death sentence. Kryn's claws dug into the armrests of his throne-like chair. 60%. In mere minutes. "How?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," the officer admitted. "We still can't detect any directed energy weapons. No missile trails. Our soldiers are reporting nothing. Nothing." That word disturbed Kryn more than any explosion, any battle report. In every invasion before this, there was always something: the expected signs of resistance, the desperate last stands of doomed civilizations. But here, his forces weren't even getting the chance to fight back. Kryn inhaled sharply. "Pull back the remaining forces. Get them back on the ships." The order sent murmurs through the crew. Kryn had never ordered a retreat. Commander Vale hesitated. "Sir, if we retreat now, we—" The ship's alarms shrieked before he could finish. A new signal flared across the main display. Something was coming. Kryn turned sharply. "What now?" A tactical officer looked up, eyes wide with fear. Massive energy signatures detected. "Admiral." There. The entire dreadnought shook. Not from an explosion. Not from enemy fire. From something else. The Empire's fleet was no longer alone. Hundreds, no, thousands, of strange dark shapes were appearing all around them, seemingly out of nowhere. They weren't ships. They weren't conventional space stations. They were void-black constructs, absorbing radar, bending light around them. Artificial gravity wells began forming, disrupting the fleet's formations. Kryn's breath hitched. This wasn't just resistance. This was preparation. The humans hadn't been caught off guard. They had been waiting. And now, the trap was closing. Admiral Kryn's fleet was in chaos. The battlefield was no longer theirs to control. The void-black structures that had appeared around them were disrupting their formations, their sensors, their very sense of direction. Ships veered off course, struggling against unseen forces. "Admiral, gravitational anomalies are spreading," one of the officers shouted. "Our fleet is being boxed in." Kryn clenched his jaw. "Full reverse thrusters. Pull us out before." A brilliant flash erupted outside the viewport. One of their capital ships, the Valdhar, suddenly crumpled in on itself, as if the space around it had folded. It didn't explode. It simply vanished. The bridge crew stared in horror. What was that?" Commander Vale whispered. Kryn felt a cold dread crawl through him. The answer was obvious. It was a weapon. A human weapon. "We've underestimated them," he admitted, his voice quieter than before. "They aren't just fighting us. They're dismantling us." On Earth's surface, Captain Elias Carter watched the chaos unfolding in the skies. His team had no access to the classified weapons deployed in orbit, but they could see the effects. Empire ships that once moved in precise, crushing formations were now scrambling like panicked animals. He pressed his earpiece. "Command, this is Carter. Looks like Phase 3 is working. Do we move to cleanup?" A brief silence. Then a voice responded. "Negative. We're moving to complete containment. No survivors." Elias exhaled. It was the answer he expected. The Empire had come here expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had stumbled into a war they could never win. Above them, the sky burned as humanity tightened the noose. "You said." Admiral Kryn had never known fear like this. The fleet was dying, and he had no idea how to stop it. His species had ruled the stars for centuries, crushing worlds beneath their might. But now, for the first time, they were the ones being hunted. "Emergency FTL jump," he roared. "We need to retreat. Now." "Impossible, Admiral," the navigation officer cried. "Something is disrupting our drive cores. We can't break away." Kryn's claws scraped against the armrest. Trapped, like animals. On the surface, Captain Elias Carter watched the Imperial fleet struggle. He knew exactly why they couldn't escape. The gravity traps were doing their job. "You wanted a war," he muttered under his breath. "Well, now you're getting one." The humans had spent years preparing for this moment. They had studied Imperial technology, found its weaknesses, and built their own weapons specifically designed to counter them. FTL dampeners, gravity wells, kinetic bombardments, all designed for one goal: to make sure the Empire never left Earth's orbit alive. Above them, the war was turning into a massacre. Imperial ships flailed in disarray, unable to regroup. Some fired wildly into the void, hoping to hit something, anything. Others simply fled deeper into the trap, only to be torn apart by unseen forces. For the first time, Kryn realized the truth. The humans had never been the prey. They had always been the hunters. "You said." Admiral Kryn's warship shuddered as another explosion ripped through what remained of his fleet. The Imperial ships were dying one by one, crushed by forces they didn't understand. They had come expecting primitive resistance, but instead they had walked into a carefully laid ambush. "Sir, our outer perimeter is gone," a panicked officer yelled. "We're losing ships by the second." Kryn's mind raced. Every standard battle tactic had failed. Every Imperial advantage had been countered. The humans had studied them, predicted them, outmaneuvered them. For centuries, the Empire had believed itself invincible. They saw lesser species as nothing more than obstacles to be swept aside. But Earth had been different. They hadn't just fought back. They had waited. They had prepared. They had turned the battlefield against them. Kryn slammed a fist against the console. "All remaining ships, focus fire. If we're going down, we take as many of them as we can." Across the battlefield, desperate Imperial ships pushed forward, trying to break through the invisible grip holding them in place. Blazing plasma cannons tore through space, but their shots hit nothing. The humans weren't even there. And then the real horror began. From the darkness, Earth's true warships emerged. Not the decoys, not the stealth traps, but the real fleet. Sleek, black, undetectable until now. Their hulls shimmered as they moved through the wreckage of the dying Imperial Armada. Their weapons, silent and precise, fired with terrifying accuracy. One by one, the last of the Empire's greatest warships were silenced. Admiral Kryn could do nothing but watch as his people, his legacy, was erased. You said. Admiral Kryn stood frozen, his eyes locked onto the void-black warships now dominating the battlefield. They moved with purpose, not chasing down fleeing ships, not wasting ammunition on crippled vessels. They were executing. His crew no longer looked to him for orders. There were no orders left to give. The Empire's greatest fleet, the unstoppable armada that had conquered 1,000 worlds, was gone. Sir, Commander Vale's voice was hollow. They're hailing us. Kryn's throat tightened. Humans never offered surrender. They had been watching, studying, waiting for the Empire to strike. And when the moment came, they didn't fight a battle. They orchestrated an extinction. Patch it through, he said, though he already knew what was coming. The screen flickered. A human officer stood there, his expression unreadable. Calm, cold, unshaken. This is Captain Elias Carter of the Terran Defense Fleet. His voice was level, without arrogance or rage, just finality. Your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is broken. Your people will never set foot on Earth again. Kryn's fists clenched. And what of us? Captain Carter tilted his head slightly. There are no survivors. The transmission cut. Kryn barely had time to inhale before the human fleet opened fire. A dozen beams of searing energy pierced his ship's hull, slicing through the command deck like paper. The last thing he saw was fire, a fire greater than any the Empire had ever unleashed. And then nothing. Earth had won, and the Empire no longer existed.